Have you ever been in a room where someone falls apart and suddenly you're the one holding them together? Welcome back to Auntea-Ology, the Antidote Dialogue. I'm Sobia Ali-Faisal.
And I'm Mueni Mutinda.
And last time we talked about what it costs to tell the truth. This time, we're talking about what happens when someone's tears become a weapon. Mueni, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Sobia. I am actually really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Me too. Like, I think we've all experienced this at some point. So this should be an interesting conversation.
Yes, I get to talk about what happens and share with another human. So that's really exciting to me.
Absolutely. Okay. So tea's ready. Let's talk about the crier. You know the one, the person who falls apart so the conversation stops. We're spilling on weaponized fragility, the performance of innocence, and who actually cleans up the mess when someone else's tears take over the room.
So picture this. I'm in my office about 6 months into a leadership role, and I've been working hard to get to know my new team. As part of building rapport and getting a sense of their interests and vision of their role within the department and the organization, I set up bi-weekly one-on-one meetings, about an hour each, and ask folks to prepare talking points on what they've been doing over the last year and what they're focused on this year. And they should link these two with their job descriptions so that it's aligned with organizational priorities and so on. And of course, it gives me a chance to gauge how well somebody understands their role, believes in the vision and mission of the organization, values their contribution, and how they show up. For example, are they energized by certain things in their work while other things seem to take longer to do, and why? It's a space to get to know each other personally and professionally. And I really like those spaces. So things begin to roll and meetings are set. Because there are no follow-up questions, we can assume, as we humans do, that things are clear and straightforward. Newsflash, always check your assumptions. It comes time for meetings, and a particular direct report first asks to shift the meeting to accommodate a personal matter, which we do. Several times, in fact. And I'm new, so I don't clue in that this is part of their strategy to avoid accountability. When they finally show up for the meeting, they immediately launch into the multiple problems they've been facing in their role. So I listen and learn. And with a little probing, I learned that not only did they not prepare fully for our one-on-one meeting, which has been moved around several times at this point, they're projecting their feelings of shame and guilt and inadequacy onto me. Their inability to sit in their inadequacy becomes this weeping with grand gestures, which take up a lot of space, time, and energy as they're attempting to talk through their tears about how difficult it's all been. While I'm new into this role and this team, I am unsurprised by this behavior and find myself having a kind of out-of-body experience where I'm observing this scene while thoughts like, I see you carrying on, and we both know your unconvincing act, and I will not allow myself to succumb to your manipulative theatrics run through my head. This turn of events makes me pause, offer tissue, and say, take a moment as you need before we continue. I'll wait. What I come to realize later is this is how they show up when accountability is asked of them. Their time, their work ethic, the responsibilities. They like collecting the paycheck, but they're going to carry on knowingly weaponizing their tears and the fact that they've been under pressure and therefore cannot and should not be held responsible to deliver on their portfolio. And the fact and the problem that I'm who I am, asking for accountability reinforces their sense of rightness to not have to deliver on the tasks they've been asked to deliver on because of their core belief that says, I do not look or fill this position of authority and power as they have been conditioned to believe and see. So therefore, they are excused from respecting and delivering on their work under my leadership. My experience was them fighting me on everything I asked of them as a result of them seeing me as less than. At one point in my career, I will admit I did accept and take on the responsibility for these theatrics. And then I learned that each one of us is responsible for our own behavior, no matter what. And it's not my place to placate, to smooth, to perform, to clean up after anyone's emotional dumping, which it's an adult, number one. And number two, it's irresponsible and it is a form of violence. So, this is what it means to become conscious of how we show up and to take responsibility for how our individual behavior affects and impacts others.
Mueni, thank you for sharing your story. Here's what I'm hearing, that tears can be real and still function as a weapon. These two things aren't mutually exclusive. Someone can genuinely feel overwhelmed and use that overwhelm to shut down accountability. But here's what keeps coming back to me. Why does this person feel overwhelmed in this specific moment? Like not in general, not because, their inbox is exploding or work is piling up, but like right now in this moment, right? Honestly, I think it's because of the dynamic you pointed to. You're a Black woman. The crier in your office was white. And in that moment, a Black woman was calmly asking them to account for their work. I have a feeling that if their manager were a white woman, or even a white man, the tears might not come as fast, if they come at all, really. I think that what we're seeing um, isn't just workplace stress. I think it's resentment dressed as distress. The body reacts, but the body is political. A white woman who has never had to answer to a Black woman before might genuinely feel dysregulated. But that dysregulation isn't about work, or it isn't just about work. It's about whose authority she's being asked to respect. And those tears become a reflex, but they're also a release valve for anger that she can't name. There's a resentment that comes from her conditioning, growing up in a white supremacist system. She's not crying because the spreadsheet was hard. She's crying because she's overwhelmed with resentment. Resentment that the rules have changed from what she expected. Resentment that she's being seen by someone she didn't expect to answer to, and that someone is, in fact, her boss. The tears let her exit the conversation without ever having to say any of that out loud.
100%. 100%. She knows what she's doing, and she is shamelessly carrying it out. And I love that you named what is really the underlying emotion that she's not naming. And I hadn't named that before, but I see it now. It's resentment. It's resentment that shows up as like, I'm frustrated. I can't do this. You're asking too much. I don't even know what you're asking me, but you've been doing this work before I got here. I am not asking more or different from what you've already been doing. In fact, what it shows me is that I question your work ethic at all, and that previous leaders allowed you to stay in that role, and what they reinforced as a result of your inability to perform. They just, I mean, maybe she didn't perform in that way because the person who was there was not like me. It was a white man. So the motivation behind the way she shows up in this meeting, leading up to the meeting, at the meeting, and after, is this soup of mess, psychological, emotional mess that she's just leaving everywhere. And it is her way of saying what she's feeling without saying it out loud. And that has an impact on me because now I have to go meet with my executive director and have a conversation about, why my team is underperforming, which is a reflection on me, even though I've inherited a team where some folks are in fact incompetent and they're not willing to have a leader like me support them to grow professionally and to just become better human beings.
And here's the thing, it also paints you as the bad guy. You're mean, you're scary, you're so uncaring, when all you're really asking for is regular workplace accountability. The same thing anyone would ask for, the same thing anyone would expect, So those tiers become like daggers. You're trying to do a good job, you're trying to hold people accountable, for the sake of the whole workplace, so the work can actually get done. And then the tiers come out and suddenly you're the bad guy. Now you're accountable to your superiors about whether the work is getting done, but now they might even see you as the wrong person for the job because someone was crying. And it's not just white women who weaponize tears, right? I supervised an employee once, not a white woman, who would cry anytime I tried to have an accountability conversation. And it always made me feel like this horrible person, like I was being so mean. But in reality, I was trying to address their mean behavior toward a colleague, and not in a punitive way, though I mean I guess they may have read it that way. But still, the tears would come out and the conversation would go nowhere. No accountability. I was just this mean person who was being mean to them for no reason, and nothing changed. So it's a really harmful process, right? This weaponized fragility, which is what it is. And it's frustrating. Like, it's so frustrating to have to navigate that. And then you're the bad guy, the one who made that person cry.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that the weaponized fragility is a thing. And, I don't know what she's going through in her everyday life outside of work, but this is not an out of the box request. Here's a new leader, and we're going to meet one-on-one to get to know each other, and you're going to brief me on what you've been doing and how it's going and how that links to why you're in this role. Basically, tell me what you do and why you do it and how it matters, like why it matters. So that request, even as clear and as straightforward as it is, because of who's making that request, the weaponization becomes that much more. It's sharp. And I think the thing that I found deeply disturbing was that she knew what she was doing, because it's almost like when she would come into my office, this was the modus operandi. This is how she showed up. And I knew I was familiar with this kind of behavior. So I would say, here are the Kleenex. I will wait. So when you're done, we'll continue the conversation, because we've booked an hour and I'm the kind of person who is not going to fall for this nonsense. And this, we call it performance of innocence. So, I'm not bad. I'm just struggling. So I can't be held responsible. And I think it's important to separate those that, wearing this idea on your wrist or on your sleeve that, well, I'm not a bad person, so you can't hold me accountable. That doesn't equate. That's not how it works.
No, because no one's like making the accusation that someone's like bad. It's not like we're saying you're a bad person and it's not about your work. It's just you're a bad person. No, it's about the work. It's about maybe how you're relating to other people. And these are things you can work on, and I can help you work on them, and we can work together, right? It's not about punishment. We're trying to fix something and offer you supports and resources that you might need to be able to fix it. But you have to be willing to fix it, right? But people don't want to, they're not willing to fix it because they don't want, the resentment. They're offended that you would even like think that they have something to fix. How dare you even assume that I have something that I need to work on? And you of all people, right? So there's that again, it goes back to the dynamics. Like, who are you to tell me that I have something to fix?
Yeah, this underlying resentment is very strongly being communicated in other ways that we have to pay attention to as bodies of culture, as Resmaa Menakem says. This idea that people are communicating their truth, and when they do what they're saying, we need to pay attention to that. So I cannot begin to justify that this person's tears, well, I need to pay attention to them because they're going through a lot. Everybody's going through a lot. There's a place for empathy. And as you said, the question you asked, If there's difficulties happening, why choose this moment right now to fall into this pool of tears? Unless you're using it as manipulation for somebody with power that you don't agree that they should have that power.
Yeah. The more we talk about it, the more I feel like those tears really are almost exclusively about resentment. Like I'm having a hard time thinking about when it would be truly just overwhelm and not resentment, right? I mean, again, I think for me, if it's truly about overwhelm, like you said, people should come to you sooner, right? They should initiate that conversation and say, "Look, I'm feeling overwhelmed by the work. Can you help me? Can you give me less work to do? Or can you give me some supports? Or can you, I'm just feeling incredibly overwhelmed. Can you help me out?" And so in that situation, if the person themselves initiates that conversation. But if it's only when they're, quote unquote being called out or when someone's trying to hold them accountable and that's when the tears flow, then yeah, I just it feels more like like resentment tears than overwhelmed tears.
And when you have people like I'm just having this thought right now. When you have people who haven't been held accountable, who haven't been taught accountability, and you're in a professional setting, you're an adult, so you maybe somehow have missed on that community experience and very tough learning, love and learning ground of learning relational accountability. You are responsible to the community, vice versa. There's this reciprocity that goes. So if you haven't learned that, and then you're in a work environment where a new leader comes in and a team, they're trying to create a team ethos and a way to be able to achieve the goals together for that department. But you somehow sense that this invitation to be accountable is a threat to you as who you are. That's totally missing the point, because it's again this idea of this crier centering themselves in all of these conversations and not having the ability to see your own position in this. You've contributed to putting yourself in this situation. If you didn't understand the job, it was up to you to go and ask for support and figure out how to position yourself so you could become a better colleague, employee, and all those things. Because yeah, I think there's this loss of accountability if somebody hasn't learned that, or boundaries, even to be able to show up in a way that is, okay, I am a contributing member of this group or this community or this team. And so I know what is requested of me. I will take this away. I will work on it. I will come back and report. This is not difficult.
And I think that this goes back to a lot of what we often say, whether here or in our courses or, wherever we have, engagement with people. We often will say, this comes down to our own self-awareness, right? This begins with our own self-awareness. So the antidote then, I think, for this is that we are all responsible for our own behavior and we need to work on ourselves. We need to know what our triggers are, what our assumptions are, what our beliefs are, what our insecurities are, our biases, and our internalization of systemic oppression. Like, what kinds of beliefs have we internalized? It really comes down to starting with understanding oneself and learning about oneself. The tears aren't the work. The work is what happens preferably before the tears. Really, before the tears come, let's do some work on ourselves so that we are better able to understand why we respond in various ways and what we're actually responding to and who we actually are.
Yeah. The one thing that's striking me about this is the crier in this story is a white woman, and the one sitting there being at the receiving end of these tears is me, a Black woman. And do I ever get to be the crier?
No, no. And that's it. There are people who never get to be criers, right? Especially Black women, even more so than other racialized women. I think there is this assumption that Black women are superhuman and strong, and if you cry, then either you are seen as weak or manipulative, right? There's also all those assumptions that come for racialized people that we are always trying to pull one over on people. So there's a lot of racist assumptions, but certainly I think Black women probably have the least amount of, are given the least amount of leeway there for sure.
Yeah, that's the injustice, right? Because the table is not set for everybody to come and sit around. It's for some. And I suppose, I mean, this is part of why you and I are doing the work that we're doing, to usher in equitable ways of seeing and doing things that are just, that are considered, they consider the humanity of everybody involved. It's not just for some, it's for all of us. And until then, I think there's so much work to do.
Exactly. And it is dehumanization, right? The fact that Black women aren't allowed to be vulnerable, to be fragile, really, and to have their fragility acknowledged and honored. Like, there are times when we're all fragile, but the fact that Black women don't have that, that's a dehumanization. That's what that is. And we demand people challenge that. Like, we need to challenge that. We can't move forward unless people start challenging that. And again, this shows up in ways that maybe are not like huge ways, but these are the things that show up in work. Like, these are the things that show up in relationships. These are the things that show up in your daily life. And so we need to be on the lookout for them and challenge them.
Yes. And with that, here are some messy questions we'd like to leave with you to sit with this week. Think of a time someone cried when you held them accountable. Was their crying treated as truth, or did you have to prove yours first? Whose tears in your life get to end a conversation? Whose tears get called dramatic or manipulative? And what's the difference, really? If you're someone who has cried when held accountable, especially by someone with less power than you, what was underneath the tears? Fear, shame, or something you weren't ready to name, like resentment at being seen? And finally, what would it take to hold someone's real pain and still ask them to be responsible? Not instead of, at the same time.
So we started by asking about the crier in the room. And here's what I'm sitting with after Mueni's story. Tears aren't the work. The work is what you do before the tears come or after the tears have dried. Who you become when no one's watching. Whether you can sit in the discomfort of being seen without making someone else clean it up.
Next time, we're getting into something that will ruffle some feathers. The performance of allyship, optics over impact, and why the sector loves a good photo op more than it loves actual change. If this episode stirred something, if you're realizing you've been the cleaner or wondering if you've been the crier, we've built spaces for that work. Our Auntea-Ology monthly gatherings, the online course, and the coaching and consulting for those ready to move from performance to practice. Feel free to link in the show notes.
And there's lots of resources as well on our website, so please do check that out, seedroom.ca. If you want to do work on yourself, that self-awareness, we have resources for you. If you want to talk about accountability, we got resources for you there too. So please do check out our website. And if you want to talk about what landed, reach out to us as well. We're at info@seedroom.ca. Free discovery calls, no pitch, just a conversation. Thanks for pulling up a chair. I'm tired of cleaning. Leave knowing it's not your job.
Stay messy, stay curious, and stay loving.